Our research shows that when you open your heart and you begin to feel elevated emotions,
we've seen blind people seeing, deaf people hearing, not people with strokes for 10 years lift their arms up again. We've seen people step out of wheelchairs. The body literally recalibrates to a new mind.
If you have a perception in your outer environment of some type of danger or threat, the reaction or the response to that stimulation begins to activate the fight or flight nervous system. You're mobilizing energy to prepare yourself for that danger. And when the body perceives that danger and it's a big threat, it doesn't hold back on the amount of energy it's deciding to use. It goes all in. So for the short term, that's fine. But if you keep doing it over and over again, you keep knocking your brain and body out of balance. And that's what stress is. And the repetition of that, keep knocking the body out of balance, begins to weaken the organism. So when a person is perceiving a danger threatening their outer world and they're turn on those adrenal hormones, they're putting all their energy for that threat in their outer world. There's no energy in their inner world for repair, for growth. So a person who's constantly feeling fear because they believe something out there is going to get them to things in their outer environment, then their immune system is compromised. So they actually have more of a propensity for infections, for foreign agents or invaders, because now their body is reacting and constantly responding to the outer world. So our research shows that if you trade those emotions of fear, of worry, of anxiety, of any vigilance, and you can open your heart, and I know that that doesn't seem natural or normal during these times, but if not now, when? And if you can begin to feel gratitude and appreciation and settle your body into the present moment, 4 days of feeling an elevated emotion would actually strengthen your immune system by about 50%. We've done the research to show that once energy makes it into your heart, the body begins to, it's so objective that it doesn't know the difference between the emotion you're feeling by thought alone and some emotion you would feel from some reaction in your environment. Your body in that state is beginning to believe it's safe enough to relax into the present moment. And so when that occurs, the immune system begins to upregulate and it begins to make these antibodies. And those antibodies are the body's natural defense against bacteria and viruses. They're the shields that protect the body from foreign invaders. And 4 days of doing that, imagine if you practice doing that every single day. I think by working with your body and elevating your emotional state, you could literally become more resistant or more in a state of order, independent of your outer environment.
And how you think and how you act and how you feel is your personality. And your personality has a very direct relationship with your personal reality, which means if you want to change your personal reality, if you want to change something about your life, you got to change. And so the process of change then becomes the fundamental process of going from some person that's familiar and known to you and stepping out and beginning to make different choices and to begin thinking differently and begin to behave differently and speak differently and feel differently. And if you start thinking, acting, and feeling differently, our research shows without a doubt, you're going to have dramatic changes in your biology. And if you do it enough times, you're going to become someone else. And the disease then all of a sudden exists in the old personality and not in the new personality. And you ask the person, where's the cancer? Where's the rheumatoid arthritis? Where's the immune-mediated condition? It's in the old person. I'm not that person any longer. And so when we started seeing these changes taking place in people that had their own personal remissions, I thought, well, is that teachable? And what is the science behind teaching it? Can we teach people how to begin to change their thoughts? And is there neuroscience to support it? And there's tons. And if you begin to behave differently, can you create new pathways that begin to become habituated over time? And if you stop feeling suffering and you stop feeling pain, and you stop feeling guilt, and you start feeling elevated emotions like joy or inspiration or gratitude, not just in a momentary state like positive thinking, but to be able to self-regulate and maintain that, we could teach that could we produce the same effects in people? So
Yeah.
I think this is a time in history, Mark, where it's not enough to know. It's a time in history to know how. And so all that philosophy is all great dinner conversation, but when you're given a diagnosis, now you got to step out of the bleachers and you got to get on the playing field and you got to start making different choices. And the hardest part about change is not making the same choice as you did the day before. And the moment you decide to make a different choice, whether you like it or not, you're going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel unfamiliar. You're not going to be able to predict what's going to happen. There's going to be some uncertainty because you're leaving the known familiar self. And so how does the person become the person they are? And why do they keep their health condition the same? And well, most people, your brain is a record of the past. It's an artifact of everything you've learned and experienced to this moment. So most people wake up in the morning, if you think that your thoughts have something to do with your destiny, they start thinking about their problems. And those problems are just memories that are etched in their brain that are connected to certain people and objects and certain things at certain times and places. And the moment they start thinking about their problems, they're thinking in the past. Now, because every one of those problems has an emotion associated with them, the moment they start feeling unhappy or feeling sad, now their body's in the past, because thoughts are the language of the brain and feelings are the language of the body, and how we think and how we feel creates our state of being. Now, the problem is that the person thinks of the problem, feels the emotion, and that is a thought and feeling. That's an image and an emotion. It's a stimulus and response, and that starts the conditioning process to get the body emotionally conditioned into the past. Now, here's the crazy part about that. The familiar past, emotionally, is producing dramatic effects on the body because the body is so objective that it does not know the difference between the real life experience that's creating that emotion and the emotion that person is fabricating by thought or memory alone. The body's believing it's living in the same past experience 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
If you take a person and you have them close their eyes and mentally rehearse doing bicep curls in their mind, and they come for 1 hour a day into a clinic, and you add the emotional component of stronger, harder, more intense, and they practice that with their eyes closed, never lifting a weight. At the end of 2 weeks, their muscle strength increases by 13.5%. So that means then, when we're truly present and we add an emotional component, if you can do it in the present moment and stay present and repeat it over and over again, when the brain is in the present moment, it will not know the difference between the real life event of contracting your muscles and doing it in your mind. And your brain will begin to look like you've been doing it all along, and you begin to activate new circuits in your brain. And if you repeat it, you fire and wire it, more circuits begins to create a neurological network, a new level of mind. So the research shows then that people who never played the piano before, you can divide them into two categories. And you can do a brain scan on one group of people and then set them in front of a piano and teach them one-handed scales and chords. And they come for 2 hours a day and they practice those scales and chords for 5 days. At the end of 5 days, they rescan their brain, and lo and behold, they grow new circuits on the opposite side of the brain. No magic there. You learn something new. Learning is making new synaptic connections. You get some instruction. You got to get your body involved. You get your body involved, you're going to have a new experience. Experience enriches the brain. Pay attention to what you're doing. You got to pay attention and stay present and repeat it over and over again, firing and wiring. You're going to assemble new neural architecture. You can take another group of people, have them close their eyes, and mentally rehearse playing those scales and chords for 2 hours a day for 5 days. Scan their brain before and scan their brain after. At the end of 5 days, they grow the same amount of circuits in their brain as the people who were physically doing it. Now, what that means is if you take those people and you set them in front of the piano without ever lifting a finger, they can play those scales and chords. Why? Because they prime their brain for a future behavior. So if you truly wanted to change some aspect of yourself, then you would have to ask yourself, who do I want to be when I open my eyes? Now, the act of answering that question is going to turn on your frontal lobe, and the frontal lobe has connections to all other parts of the brain. And it's interested in answering that question because it is the creative center. So as it begins to scan the landscape of the brain, it can only gather information from things you've intellectually learned or things you've experienced in your life. And it begins to associate those different memories with the question. And when you get enough networks of neurons firing in your brain, you see an image or a picture. That's intention. And then as you begin to live and rehearse who you're going to be, you begin to do that exact same thing. You begin to install neurological hardware in your brain. Repeat it, it becomes a software program, and you begin to behave that way. Now the brain is primed. It's no longer a record of the past. It's a map to the future. Now the person can feel the emotions of their future. You're going to see a person move into a different state of being, and they are going to have all kinds of biological changes.
You sit down and you say, okay, I don't want to be unhappy. I don't want to be angry. I don't want to talk trash about people. I don't want to complain. I want to blame. I don't want to make excuses. I don't want to feel lack. I don't want to have an attitude that's telling me I can. It's too hard. That's the old identity, right? So the moment you start becoming conscious of those unconscious thoughts, the moment you become aware of your automatic habits and behaviors, the moment you can notice that this is actually guilt that you're feeling, or sadness or pain, the moment you can become conscious and familiar with those states of mind and body, if you keep becoming familiar with it, if you keep becoming conscious of it, you won't go unconscious. So sitting in a meditation to know thyself, most people all of a sudden, here comes the barrage of thoughts. Here comes the propensities and habits, and here comes the emotions. The body's saying, you normally complain at this time. What are you doing sitting with your eyes closed? Let's think of a reason why you can complain. And the body starts influencing the mind. So if you break it down to for a person to understand, how many times do we have to forget until we start remembering and keep remembering and stop forgetting? That's the process of change. So then you put a person in a meditation and they hear that voice, they hear that chatter, they want to get up and go to the bathroom, they want to check their cell phone, they want to feel angry. And instead of getting up and saying, I can't meditate, see, they're coming to the end of the known. So they want to go back to what's known, right? If you teach the person what to do and you show them that on the other side of that is freedom, on the other side of that is joy, you got to become so conscious, and it takes a lot of awareness. It takes a lot of energy to sit with yourself long enough to disentangle from those programs. Now, we now know that it's a formula, that if you follow a formula, you will actually start pruning circuitry. You'll stop the conditioning process and move the body out of the past, and it starts liberating energy. And that's energy to heal with. That's energy to create a new life. That's energy to digest again. The body's no longer living in survival or living in emergency. And